Dr. Ethan Brooks walked through the hospital halls wearing his clean white coat. His shoes made a loud sound as he walked, letting everyone know he was coming. The nurses and young doctors quickly moved out of his way, looking down because they were a little scared of him. Dr. Ethan was known as one of the best doctors in the country. His hands were steady and his mind was sharp. Many people came to him for help, and other doctors admired his skills. But there was another side to Dr. Ethan that was not so nice. As he got closer to the exam room, he looked at the paper in his hand and saw the name of his next patient, Anna Thompson. He made a small, mean smile because he thought seeing her was a waste of his time. Dr. Ethan opened the door and saw Anna, a black woman, sitting on the exam table. She was holding her hands tightly in her lap, and her eyes looked worried but hopeful. But Dr. Ethan didn't care about that. All he saw was someone he didn't think was worth his time or skills. "Mrs. Thompson," he said in a cold voice, "what's wrong today?" Anna started to explain her symptoms, her voice shaking a little. "Doctor, I've been having sharp pains in my belly. They're getting worse, and I'm really scared." Dr. Ethan didn't really listen as he looked through her chart. He had already decided what was wrong. He cut her off. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm sure it's nothing serious. Maybe it's just a stomach ache or something related to your period. Have you tried taking some pain medicine?" Anna's face fell, and she felt sad that she wouldn't get a proper checkup. "But doctor, it feels different this time. I've never had pain like this before," she said. Dr. Ethan sighed, showing he was annoyed. "Mrs. Thompson, if it were serious, you would know. Take some painkillers and rest. If it doesn't go away, see your regular doctor." Without waiting for her to respond, Dr. Ethan turned and walked out the door. He had other patients he thought were more important and deserved his help. As he left, he didn't notice the disappointed and scared look on Anna's face. The next day, Anna came back to the clinic. Her face showed how much pain she was in, and she held her swollen belly under her loose blouse. She walked slowly, each step hurting her. When she entered Dr. Ethan's office, he looked up from his desk, feeling annoyed. "Mrs. Thompson, back so soon?" he asked sarcastically. Anna sat down slowly, her breathing heavy. "Dr. Ethan, please, the pain is much worse today, and my belly is swollen. Something's wrong," she said. Dr. Ethan leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms and looking at her with narrowed eyes. But he didn't look at her with worry. Instead, he looked at her with dislike. "Mrs. Thompson, didn't I tell you yesterday it was nothing serious? Are you just here for attention or more pain medicine?" he asked. Tears filled Anna's eyes. "No, doctor, I'm really scared. This isn't normal for me," she said softly. Ethan stood up quickly, his chair making a loud noise against the floor. "Listen, Mrs. Thompson, I've seen people like you before. You might not be used to good medical care, but that doesn't mean you can waste my time with every little ache and pain," he said harshly. Anna flinched, feeling small and unimportant. She tried again, her voice barely a whisper. "But doctor, please just look." "Enough," Ethan interrupted her. "Take some more painkillers and stop exaggerating. There are patients with real problems who need my attention." Anna's shoulders slumped in defeat as she slowly stood up. One hand was on her swollen belly, and the other wiped away a tear as she walked toward the door. Ethan's voice followed her. "And Mrs. Thompson, next time, try not to be so dramatic. It's unbecoming." The door closed behind Anna with a soft click. She stood in the hallway, feeling embarrassed and sad. The pain in her belly kept hurting, reminding her of how the doctor had ignored her. With a heavy heart and slow steps, Anna left the clinic, wondering what she would do now. Emily burst through the front door, her backpack swinging as she shouted, "Dad, I'm home!" Her voice echoed through their big house. Ethan came out of his study, smiling tiredly. "Hello, sweetheart. How was school today?" he asked. Emily's eyes sparkled as she excitedly told him about her day. "Oh, Dad, it was amazing. Ella and I got paired up for our science project, and we're going to build a model of the solar system. Ethan nodded, but his mind was still on the patients he had seen that day. That's nice, dear. Who's Ella again? He asked. Emily rolled her eyes, a little annoyed. Dad, I've told you about Ella 1,000,000 times. She's my best friend. Ethan chuckled and ruffled Emily's hair. Of course, I remember now. As they moved into the kitchen, Emily kept talking happily. Ella's mom is so cool, Dad. She works 2 jobs and still helps us with our projects. She even offered to help us paint our planets. Ethan raised an eyebrow, now interested. Is that so? He asked. Emily nodded eagerly. Yeah, Mrs. Thompson is amazing. She's always so kind and patient, even when she looks really tired. Ella says her mom hasn't been feeling well lately, but she still makes time for everyone. Ethan felt a small pang in his chest. Was it guilt? He quickly brushed it aside. Well, that's very admirable of her, he said in a neutral tone. It really is, Dad, Emily agreed warmly. Mrs. Thompson is so strong. Ella told me that even though things are tough sometimes, her mom always has a smile for everyone. She says her mom taught her that kindness doesn't cost anything. Ethan listened, his face showing no emotion. He had no idea that the woman his daughter was praising was the same woman he had dismissed at the clinic. The irony of the situation was lost on him. That's a good lesson, Ethan said softly, more to himself than to Emily. Emily beamed at her father. I think so too. Hey, Dad, do you think we could invite Ella and her mom over sometime? I'd love for you to meet them. Ethan hesitated for a moment before forcing a smile. We'll see, sweetheart. Now, why don't you go start on your homework? As Emily bounced off to her room, Ethan stood in the kitchen, lost in thought. The image of the woman he had so rudely dismissed at the clinic flickered in his mind. But he couldn't connect her to the kind, strong mother his daughter had just described. As the days passed, Anna's condition got worse. The pain in her belly became stronger, and it was getting harder for her to hide it from Ella. Every morning, she forced herself out of bed, wincing as she moved, determined to carry on with her daily tasks. Mom, are you okay? Ella asked one morning, her big brown eyes filled with worry. Anna forced a smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Of course, sweetie. Just a little tired, that's all, she replied. But the truth was far from okay. Anna's body ached, and she felt a constant gnawing pain that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. Still, she pushed through, refusing to let her daughter see her struggle. At work, Anna found herself taking more breaks, leaning against walls for support when the pain became too much. Her coworkers noticed her pale complexion and the beads of sweat that often appeared on her forehead, but Anna brushed off their concern with a weak smile. I'm fine, she'd say, even as she gripped the edge of her desk to steady herself. As she prepared dinner one evening, a sharp pain shot through her belly, causing her to drop a plate. Anna had been struggling with her health for a while, but the thought of going back to Dr. Ethan's clinic made her stomach churn. She had been there before, and his dismissive attitude had left her feeling embarrassed and ignored. His words still rang in her ears, cruel and cold, as if her pain was something trivial. That day, as she washed the dishes, a sudden sharp pain shot through her abdomen, causing her to drop the plate she was holding. It shattered on the floor with a loud crash, and the sound brought her daughter Ella running into the kitchen. Mom, Ella cried, seeing her mother doubled over in pain. Are you okay? Anna straightened up quickly, forcing a laugh despite the pain. Oh, silly me, just dropped a plate, sweetie, she said, trying to keep her voice light. Could you grab the broom for me? Ella hesitated, her eyes filled with worry as she searched her mother's face. Are you sure you're okay? Of course, honey, Anna lied, her heart breaking at the concern in her daughter's voice. Now go finish your homework while I clean this up. Later that night, after Ella had gone to bed, Anna sat alone at the kitchen table, her head in her hands. She knew she needed medical help, but the thought of returning to Dr. Ethan's clinic filled her with dread. His dismissive words echoed in her mind, bringing tears to her eyes. "I can't go back there," she whispered to herself, her voice choked with emotion. "I just can't." But as another wave of pain washed over her, Anna realized she was running out of options. She needed help, but the fear of facing Dr. Ethan again paralyzed her. Torn between her deteriorating health and her wounded pride, Anna felt more desperate and alone than ever before. Over the next few days, Anna's condition continued to worsen. She tried her best to hide her pain from Ella and her coworkers, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. At work, she moved slower, her face pale and drawn as she struggled through each task. On a particularly busy morning at the diner where she worked, Anna felt a sharp, stabbing pain in her abdomen. She gasped, clutching the counter for support. "Anna, are you all right?" her coworker Jenny asked, her voice filled with concern. Anna opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. The room began to spin and her vision blurred. She felt her knees buckle beneath her. "Anna!" Jenny cried out as Anna collapsed to the floor. The diner erupted in chaos. Customers gasped and stood up from their seats while Anna's coworkers rushed to her side. Jenny knelt beside her, gently patting her cheek. "Anna, can you hear me?" She called, but Anna's eyes remained closed. "Someone call an ambulance," the diner manager shouted. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air as paramedics burst through the diner doors. They quickly assessed Anna's condition, carefully lifted her onto a stretcher, and rushed her to the waiting ambulance. At the hospital's emergency room, doctors and nurses swarmed around Anna, running tests, drawing blood, and conducting scans. The medical team's faces grew increasingly serious as they reviewed the results. Dr. Lara Chen, the lead physician, frowned as she studied Anna's charts. "This is far more severe than we initially thought," she muttered to her team. "We need to admit her immediately and prepare for emergency treatment." As they wheeled Anna toward the intensive care unit, she briefly regained consciousness. Her eyes fluttered open, filled with fear and confusion. "Ella," she whispered weakly. "My daughter." A kind-faced nurse squeezed her hand. "Don't worry, we'll contact your family. You're in good hands now." Anna's eyes closed again as the medical team continued their urgent work, racing against time to save her life. Meanwhile, Dr. Ethan Brooks was making his rounds at the hospital when Dr. Franahat Chen approached him with a concerned look on her face. "Dr. Ethan, we have a critical case I'd like you to consult on," she said, her voice urgent. Ethan sighed, barely glancing up from his clipboard. "What is it, Dr. Chen?" "I'm quite busy." "It's a woman named Anna. She was admitted with severe abdominal pain and swelling. We believe it might be a complicated case requiring your expertise." Ethan's eyebrows furrowed slightly. The name sounded familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. "Anna who?" he asked, his tone dismissive. Dr. Chen flipped through her notes. "Anna Thompson. Her condition is rapidly deteriorating, and we're worried about potential complications." Ethan's mind flashed back to the woman he had dismissed at his clinic. A twinge of discomfort flickered across his face, but he quickly masked it. "I see," he said coldly. "And why exactly do you need my input?" Just then, a nurse rushed up to them, her eyes wide with urgency. "Dr. Chen, the patient in room 305 is asking for her daughter. She's very distressed." Dr. Chen nodded. "That's Anna. Her daughter's name is Ella. We're trying to contact her now." At the mention of Ella's name, Ethan froze. His heart began to race as the realization hit him like a ton of bricks. Ella, his daughter Emily's best friend. The kind, strong mother Emily had praised. It was Anna. Ethan felt a wave of nausea wash over him. He gripped his clipboard tightly, his knuckles turning white. The weight of his earlier dismissal and prejudice crashed down on him, threatening to overwhelm him. He had failed Anna, and now she was fighting for her life. Dr. Chen and the nurse looked at Ethan, waiting for him to speak. Ethan took a deep breath, trying not to show his feelings. He didn't want his friends to know how upset he was. I'll check her case, he said, keeping his voice calm. Send me all the information, and I'll see what I can do. Dr. Chen nodded, looking relieved. Thank you, Dr. Ethan. We appreciate your help. As they walked away, Ethan stood still, feeling very worried. The importance of what he had to do made him feel empty and sad. Emily ran into the house, her face full of worry. She found her dad, Ethan, sitting in his office, staring at his computer. "Dad!" she cried, her voice shaking. "Something bad has happened." Ethan looked up, surprised by how upset Emily was. "What is it, Emily? What's wrong?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. "It's Ella's mom, Anna. She's in the hospital and it's really bad. Ella is so scared, Dad. She doesn't know what to do." Ethan felt his stomach tighten with worry. He tried to keep a calm face, but his heart raced as he remembered seeing Anna earlier. "That's unfortunate," he said, his voice tense. "I'm sure the doctors are taking good care of her at the hospital." Emily shook her head, clearly frustrated. "Dad, you don't understand. Anna is amazing. She does so much for Ella, all by herself. Did you know she works 2 jobs just to make sure Ella has everything she needs?" Ethan felt uncomfortable in his chair. I didn't know that," he mumbled. "And she's always there for everyone," Emily went on, admiration in her voice. "Last month, when Mrs. Rodriguez down the street was sick, Anna cooked meals for her whole family. She's just so kind, Dad. She doesn't deserve this." As Emily talked, Ethan felt more and more guilty. The picture he had of Anna in his mind began to change, showing her as a hardworking, caring mom. "Ella told me once that her mom sometimes skips meals so she can buy school supplies for Ella," Emily said softly, wiping away a tear. "But she never complains. She always has a smile, no matter how hard things get." Ethan swallowed hard, trying to push down the guilt rising inside him. He remembered how he had treated Anna before, judging her without really knowing her. I'm sure she'll be fine," Ethan said, but he didn't sound very confident. "The hospital has great doctors." Emily looked at her father with pleading eyes. "Can't you do something, Dad? You're a great doctor. Maybe you could help." Ethan felt a wave of panic. He wanted to help to fix things, but he was ashamed of what he had done before. He tried to ignore the feeling, to make excuses for his behavior, but Emily's words kept echoing in his mind. I'll see what I can find out," unable to look his daughter in the eye. Ethan walked into the hospital conference room, his footsteps heavy with worry. The doctors treating Anna were already gathered around the table, their faces serious as they looked at her charts. "Dr. Ethan," one of the doctors greeted him. "Thanks for joining us. We'd like your opinion on this case." Ethan nodded stiffly and sat down at the table. He reached for Anna's medical file, his hands shaking slightly as he opened it. As he read the pages, his heart sank. The symptoms were all there, clear as day: the swollen belly, the pain, the tiredness, all signs he had ignored when Anna had come to his clinic. "The patient has severe belly pain and swelling," another doctor was saying. "The CT scan showed a large tumor in her ovary with signs that it has spread." Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. He remembered Anna sitting in his office, her face showing how uncomfortable she was, begging for help. And he had sent her away with nothing but a wave and a mean comment. How? Ethan's voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. "How serious is it?" The lead oncologist shook her head. "It's stage 3. If it had been caught earlier, her chances would have been much better. We're looking at aggressive treatment just to give her a fighting chance." The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. He had done this. His prejudice, his arrogance, his failure as a doctor, it had all led to this moment. He had promised to do no harm, yet his negligence had almost cost Anna her life. "Dr. Ethan," one of the younger doctors was looking at him with concern. "Are you all right?" Ethan realized he had been staring blankly at the file, his hands shaking. He looked up at the team, seeing the confusion and worry on their faces. They had no idea of his involvement, of the guilt crushing down on him. He started, then stopped. What could he say? How could he possibly explain or justify his actions? Ethan took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I'd like to take on this case personally," he announced, his voice firmer than he felt inside. The room fell silent. Ethan Brooks, known for only choosing certain patients, was volunteering to treat someone he would normally avoid. It was shocking. "Are you sure, Dr. Ethan?" the lead oncologist asked, raising her eyebrows in surprise. "We have several other specialists who I'm sure—" Ethan cut her off, perhaps too sharply. He softened his tone. I believe I'm the best person to handle this case." His colleagues exchanged glances but nodded in agreement. After all, Ethan's surgical skills were the best. As the meeting ended, Ethan stayed seated, staring at Anna's file. The face of the woman he had dismissed so cruelly now haunted him. Ethan could see the sadness and desperation in her eyes, silently asking for help. Inside him, a battle was going on. For years, he had let his prejudice control him, and now he realized his big mistake. He had let his personal bias affect his work as a doctor, and now a woman, a mother, was fighting for her life because of it. "This isn't about race," he told himself, trying to convince his stubborn mind. "This is about being a doctor, about saving a life." As he left the conference room, Ethan noticed the curious looks from the hospital staff. Word had already spread about his unusual decision to take Anna's case. He could hear the whispers and see the raised eyebrows. Dr. Martin, a colleague he often worked with, approached him in the hallway. "Ethan, are you feeling all right? It's not like you to—" Ethan cut him off with a quick nod. "I'm fine, thank you. Just doing my job." But he wasn't fine. With each step toward Anna's room, the weight of his guilt grew heavier. How could he face her? How could he look into the eyes of the woman he had failed so badly? As he reached for the door handle, Ethan paused. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and silently promised himself and Anna that he would do everything he could to make this right. Ethan hesitated outside Anna's hospital room, his hand frozen on the doorknob. He could hear soft voices inside, young, worried voices. Taking a deep breath, he pushed the door open. 2 girls sat by Anna's bedside, holding hands. One was his daughter, Emily, her eyes red from crying. The other was a young African-American girl who could only be Ella, Anna's daughter. "Dad," Emily looked up, surprised to see him there. Ethan cleared his throat. "Hello, girls. I wanted to check on the patient." Ella's eyes widened. "Are you Mom's doctor?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan nodded, unable to meet her gaze. "I am, and I promise you we're doing everything we can for her." Ella's lip quivered. "She's always taken care of me, even when she was sick. She never stopped. She'd make my lunch, help me with homework." Her voice broke. "I should have known something was wrong." Emily squeezed her friend's hand. "Your mom's the bravest person I know, Ella. Remember when she helped us with the bake sale? She stayed up all night making cupcakes, even though she had work the next day." Ethan listened, a lump forming in his throat. He had dismissed Anna so easily, seeing her only as a stereotype. But here was a woman who put everyone else first, who pushed through pain to care for her child. "She never complains," Ella said softly. "Even when things are hard, she always says we have so much to be thankful for." Ethan felt a wave of shame wash over him. He'd been so wrong, so terribly wrong. Anna wasn't just a patient, she was a mother, a friend, a pillar of strength for these girls. "Your mother sounds like an extraordinary woman," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm sorry she's going through this." The girls looked at him, hope shining in their tear-filled eyes. In that moment, Ethan made a silent vow. He would do everything in his power to save Anna, not just as a doctor, but as a human being who finally understood the value of compassion. Ethan stood by Anna's bedside, watching her chest rise and fall with each labored breath. The steady beep of the heart monitor filled the room, a constant reminder of how close they'd come to losing her. He couldn't shake the memory of their first meeting, his harsh words echoing in his mind. You people always exaggerate, he had said, his voice dripping with disdain. I'm sure it's nothing serious. Now, looking at Anna's pale face, Ethan felt a wave of shame wash over him. How could he have been so blind, so cruel? He had let his prejudice cloud his judgment, nearly costing this woman her life. Ethan sank into the chair beside her bed, burying his face in his hands. He thought of Ella and Emily, their faces full of worry and love for Anna. He thought of all the times Anna had pushed through her pain to care for others, never once complaining. I'm so sorry, he whispered, though he knew Anna couldn't hear him. I was wrong, so terribly wrong. As he sat there, Ethan made a silent vow. He would do everything in his power to make this right. It wasn't just about saving Anna's life anymore. It was about becoming the kind of doctor, the kind of person he should have been all along. Ethan stood up, a new determination in his eyes. He walked to the nurse's station, requesting Anna's complete medical history and all recent test results. He would review every detail, consult with specialists if needed, and ensure she received the best possible care. Ethan used to think about people in a bad way, but as he looked at Anna's medical charts, something changed inside him. The mean thoughts he had built up for years started to go away. He saw Anna not as a label, but as a real person, strong, loving, and worthy of respect. Ethan made a promise to himself to do the right thing, for Anna, for Ella, and for every patient he had ever judged unfairly. Ethan took a deep breath and called the doctors and nurses into a meeting. The bright lights made everyone look tired because they had been working hard on Anna's case. Ethan stood at the front of the room, not acting proud like he usually did, but with a strong focus. We need to give Anna our very best, he said firmly but kindly. Let's start from the beginning. They spent hours looking over Anna's medical history, test results, and how she was doing now. Ethan listened closely to everyone, asking questions and encouraging them to share their thoughts. His coworkers were surprised to see him so interested in a patient. Dr. Ethan, a young doctor, spoke up. I've never seen you care so much about a patient before. Ethan paused, his eyes softening. This case has taught me a lot, he admitted. We can't afford to make any mistakes. As time went on, Ethan's commitment to helping Anna became well known in the hospital. He would often check on her late at night, change her treatment plan, and talk to specialists from around the country. One evening, while Ethan was reviewing Anna's lab results by her bedside, a nurse came up to him. Dr. Ethan, you should go home and rest, she said gently. You've been here for almost 48 hours straight. Ethan shook his head, still looking at the chart. I can't leave yet. There's still so much to do. The nurse put a hand on his shoulder. You're doing everything you can, doctor. Anna is in good hands. Ethan finally looked up, his eyes full of determination and regret. I owe her this, he said softly. I owe her much more than this. As he turned back to Anna, who was sleeping, Ethan felt a new sense of purpose. He wasn't just trying to save Anna's life anymore. He was trying to become the doctor and person he should have always been. People in the hospital started talking about the big change in Ethan. His coworkers, used to him being distant and often rude, couldn't help but notice how different he was acting. Dr. Sophia Fields, another surgeon, asked Dr. James Miller in the break room, Have you seen Ethan lately? He seems like a different person. Dr. Miller nodded, stirring his coffee. It's strange, isn't it? I've never seen him care so much about a patient. Do you think it has something to do with his daughter? Sophia wondered out loud. I heard the patient's daughter is friends with Emily. James shrugged. Maybe. It's hard to believe Ethan suddenly caring after all these years. Their conversation was interrupted by Dr. Lisa Chen, who had heard them talking. I don't know, she said, joining them. I've been working closely with Ethan on Anna's case, and he seems sincere to me. He's been working all night and talking to specialists. I've never seen him work so hard. Sophia still had doubts. Maybe he's just trying to protect his reputation, she said. As the days went by, the gossip continued. Some hospital staff admired Ethan's new dedication, while others questioned his reasons. Ethan didn't notice the gossip around him because he was focused on helping Anna get better. One night after checking on her, he overheard two nurses whispering, "I bet he's only helping because she's a friend of his daughter," one said. Ethan paused, feeling a bit angry, but then he remembered how he used to act and understood why they might think that. Taking a deep breath, he straightened his white coat and walked past them without worrying about what they thought. Anna's life was in danger, and he was determined to save her. When Ethan came home late one evening, tired from working at the hospital, he found his wife, Sarah, waiting in the kitchen. The smell of a warm, home-cooked meal filled the room, but Ethan was still thinking about Anna. "Ethan, you've been so distant lately," Sarah said gently, putting a hand on his arm. Ethan sighed and sat down at the table. "I've made a terrible mistake, Sarah," he whispered. Sarah looked worried and asked, "What do you mean?" Ethan took a deep breath and told her everything. He explained how he had first dismissed Anna, letting his prejudices get in the way, and now he felt guilty. "I could have cost her life, Sarah," he said, his eyes wet with unshed tears. "And for what? Because of my own stupid biases." Sarah listened quietly, holding his hand. When he finished, she gently squeezed his hand and said, "Oh, Ethan, I'm proud of you for realizing your mistake and trying to make it right." Ethan looked at her, surprised. "You're not disappointed in me?" he asked. Sarah shook her head. "We all make mistakes, Ethan. What matters is how we learn and grow from them. You're doing the right thing now, and that's what's important." Her words made Ethan feel lighter. "I just want to do better," he admitted. "Not just for Anna, but for all my patients." Sarah smiled warmly. "That's the Ethan I married," she said, "the kind doctor who wanted to help people. Remember why you became a surgeon in the first place?" Ethan nodded, a small smile forming on his lips. "To save lives and make a difference," he said. "Exactly," Sarah replied. "And that's what you're doing now. Don't let anyone's doubts, not even your own, stop you from doing what's right." As days passed, Anna started to get better. The swelling in her abdomen went down and her vital signs stabilized. Ethan spent many hours by her side, carefully checking her progress and making changes to her treatment when needed. One afternoon, Anna slowly woke up and saw Ethan checking her IV. She blinked, recognizing him as the doctor who had been so dismissive before. "Dr. Ethan?" she whispered, her voice weak but surprised. Ethan turned to her, his face soft with relief. "Anna, you're awake. How are you feeling?" Anna hesitated, remembering their first encounter, but noticed something different about him now. His eyes were kinder than before. "I think I'm better," she said carefully, "but why are you here?" Ethan took a deep breath, his shoulders slumping a little. "Anna, I owe you an apology," he said. "My behavior during your visit was wrong. I've been taking care of you since you were admitted, and I promise I'm doing everything I can to help you recover." Anna looked at him, searching for any hint that he wasn't sincere. To her surprise, she found only genuine concern and regret. Ethan felt sorry as he sat next to Anna, who was in bed. He admitted he had made a big mistake by judging her unfairly. "I'm sorry, Anna," he said with a sad voice. "I know I almost hurt you because of how I thought, but now I want to help you get better." Anna, surprised by his kind words, felt her eyes fill with tears. She had never expected this from the once proud doctor. As she watched him gently fix her pillows and check on her, she started to trust him a little. "Thank you, Dr. Ethan," she whispered, her voice shaky with feelings. Ethan smiled softly, relieved. "You can call me Ethan," he said, "and thank you, Anna, for letting me make things right." After Anna rested, Ethan left her room, deep in thought about changing his ways. In the hallway, he found his daughter Emily, looking worried. "Dad," Emily said quietly, "can we talk?" Ethan nodded and led her to a quiet spot in the hospital cafeteria. They sat down, and Emily looked at her dad with serious eyes. "Dad, I know how you treated Ella's mom before," Emily said, her voice trembling a bit. Ella told me everything. Ethan felt shame and looked down, unable to face his daughter. Emily, No, Dad, please listen, Emily gently interrupted. I know you're trying to do better now, but you need to understand something important. Ethan looked up, seeing the determination in Emily's eyes, and nodded for her to continue. A doctor's job is to help everyone, Dad, Emily said, her voice growing stronger. It doesn't matter where they come from or what they look like. You must treat everyone the same without judging them. Her words hit Ethan hard. He had always thought of himself as a great surgeon, but now he realized he had failed in the most important part of his job. You're right, Emily, Ethan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I've been so wrong for so long. Emily took her dad's hand and squeezed it. It's not too late to change, Dad. You're already trying to. I've seen how hard you're working to help Mrs. Thompson now. Ethan squeezed her hand back, feeling both shame for his past and pride in his daughter's wisdom and kindness. I promise you, Emily, Ethan said with determination, I'm going to do better, not just for Anna, but for every patient who needs my help. I've been blind to my own unfair judgments for too long. Emily smiled, her eyes wet with tears. That's all I wanted to hear, Dad. I know you can be the kind of doctor who truly makes a difference in people's lives. As they sat there holding hands, Ethan felt a big change inside him. His daughter's words had awakened him to the true meaning of being a doctor. He knew this conversation would change his life, both at work and at home. After leaving the cafeteria, Emily's words echoed in Ethan's mind as he walked through the hospital. He felt the heavy weight of his past actions on his shoulders. He paused by a window, looking out at the busy city below. His reflection stared back at him with haunted eyes. How many patients had he judged unfairly? How many lives could he have changed if he had just been kind and fair from the start? The questions swirled in his mind, each one a painful reminder of his failures. He thought of Anna, lying in her hospital bed, fighting for her life. If he had taken her seriously from the beginning, she might not be in this situation. The thought made his stomach churn with guilt. Ethan leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. He saw faces, so many faces of patients he had treated with a cold attitude. Some he had helped, but others he had turned away or treated poorly. Each face reminded him of how he had failed as a doctor and as a person. Opening his eyes, Ethan straightened up. He knew what he had to do. Helping Anna wasn't enough. It was just the start. He needed to make bigger changes, not just in how he treated patients, but in how the whole hospital worked. With renewed determination, Ethan strode toward his office. He would begin by reviewing his past cases, reaching out to patients he had mistreated. It would be humbling and painful, but it was necessary. He would offer free follow-up care to make sure they received the treatment they deserved. But it couldn't stop there. Ethan realized he needed to address the bigger problems in the hospital. He would propose training for all staff on treating everyone fairly, push for more diverse hiring, and advocate for programs to help underserved communities. As he sat at his desk, Ethan began drafting a plan. It would be a long, challenging journey, but he was committed to seeing it through. He owed it to Anna, to Emily, and to every patient he had ever failed. Ethan took a deep breath as he approached the hospital room where Ella was waiting. He had spoken with children before, but this felt different. The weight of his past mistakes and the seriousness of Anna's condition made this conversation crucial. As he walked into the room, Ethan saw Ella sitting on a chair. Her small legs were swinging above the floor, and her eyes were red from crying. But when she looked at him, there was a little hope in her eyes. "Hello, Ella," Ethan said softly, kneeling down to her level. "I'm Dr. Ethan. I'm taking care of your mom." Ella nodded, her lower lip shaking a bit. "Is my mommy going to be okay?" Ethan felt a lump in his throat. He gently held Ella's hand and said, "Ella, I want you to know that I'm doing everything I can to help your mom. She's very sick, but she's also very strong." Ella's eyes got bigger. Really? You promise you're doing everything? Ethan nodded seriously. I promise your mom is getting the best care, and I'm working with a team of doctors to make her better. Ella's face brightened a little. Thank you, Dr. Ethan. My mommy always says that doctors are like superheroes. They make people better when they're sick. Ethan felt a pang in his chest at Ella's innocent words. He hadn't always felt like a superhero, but now he wanted to be one. Your mom is right, Ella. We do our best to help people, and I promise I'm doing my very best for your mom. Ella surprised Ethan by hugging him tightly. Thank you, she whispered. I know you'll make her better. As Ethan hugged her back, he felt overwhelmed by the trust this little girl had in him. Her faith in his abilities and her strong belief that he would save her mother touched him deeply. When Ella pulled away, Ethan saw a spark of hope in her eyes that wasn't there before. It filled him with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. Ella, he said with emotion in his voice, I promise you that I will do everything I can to help your mom get better. We're going to fight this together, okay? Ella nodded, a small smile appearing on her face. Okay, Dr. Ethan, I believe in you. As the days went by, Ethan spent more and more time by Anna's bedside. He watched her progress closely, changing her treatment plan carefully. Slowly but surely, Anna began to get better. One afternoon, as Ethan was checking Anna's vitals, she woke up and opened her eyes. Dr. Ethan, she said weakly, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan smiled gently. How are you feeling today, Anna? A little better, she replied. Thank you for taking care of me. Ethan felt a twinge of guilt at her gratitude. It's my job, he said softly. I'm sorry I didn't do it properly before. Anna looked at him, her eyes filled with curiosity and understanding. We all make mistakes, Dr. Ethan. What matters is how we learn from them. Her words touched Ethan deeply. He pulled up a chair and sat beside her bed. Can you tell me more about yourself, Anna? About your life? Over the next few days, as Anna got stronger, she shared her story with Ethan. She told him about growing up in a poor neighborhood, about the struggles she faced as a single mother, and about her dreams for Ella's future. Ethan listened closely, his heart heavy with each revelation. He began to see Anna not just as a patient, but as a strong, resilient woman who had overcome incredible challenges. You know, Anna said one day, I've always believed that everyone deserves a second chance. Even when life knocks you down, you have to get back up and keep trying. Ethan nodded, his eyes misty. You're an incredibly strong person, Anna. I admire your resilience. As they talked, Ethan found himself developing a deep respect for Anna. Her kindness, despite the hardships she had faced, humbled him. He realized how narrow-minded and unfair his initial judgment had been. With each passing day, Anna's condition improved, and Ethan's understanding of her life deepened. He began to see the world through her eyes, and it changed him in ways he never expected. As Anna's health continued to get better, Ethan spent more time thinking about the big changes he had gone through. Sitting in his office, late one evening, he looked out the window at the twinkling city lights, his mind swirling with thoughts and feelings. He remembered the first time Anna had come to his clinic and how he had dismissed her concerns with unkindness. The memory made him wince as a sharp pang of regret pierced his heart. But now, when he thought of Anna's face, he saw more than just a patient. He saw a strong, resilient woman who had faced many hardships with grace and determination. Ethan leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes. He thought about the conversations they had shared over the past few weeks, about Anna's struggles and triumphs, her hopes and fears. Each story had chipped away at the walls of prejudice he had built around himself, revealing the common humanity that connected them all. I've been so blind, Ethan whispered to himself, shaking his head. He stood up and walked to the window, pressing his forehead against the cool glass. In that moment, Ethan made a silent vow to himself and to Anna. He promised to carry these lessons forward in his career, to treat every patient with the dignity and respect they deserved, no matter their background or circumstances. "No more judgments," he said softly. "No more assumptions." Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders as he made this commitment. He realized that in helping Anna heal, he had begun to heal something within himself too. The prejudices that had once seemed so deeply ingrained now felt foreign and shameful. As he turned back to his desk, Ethan's eyes fell on a framed photo of his daughter, Emily. He picked it up, smiling as he remembered her words about a doctor's duty to serve everyone equally. She had seen the truth so clearly, while he had been lost in his own biases. "Thank you, Emily," he murmured, setting the photo down gently. "And thank you, Anna." As the day of Anna's discharge arrived, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and worry. He had spent weeks overseeing her care, and now it was time for her to go home. He wanted to make sure everything was perfect for her continued recovery. Ethan walked into Anna's hospital room holding a clipboard. Anna was sitting on her bed, wearing comfortable clothes and smiling a little. "Good morning, Anna," Ethan said kindly. "Are you ready to go home?" Anna nodded, her eyes shining with excitement. "More than ready, Dr. Ethan. I can't wait to see Ella." Ethan felt happy hearing about Anna's daughter. He knew how close they were. "Before you leave, I need to explain your discharge instructions," Ethan said, pulling up a chair. He sat down, making sure he was at Anna's eye level. For the next half hour, Ethan carefully told Anna about her medication schedule, what she should eat, and how important it was to rest. He spoke slowly and clearly, making sure Anna understood everything. "Remember, no heavy lifting for at least 6 weeks," Ethan emphasized. "And if you feel any unusual pain or discomfort, call me right away." Anna listened carefully, nodding to show she understood. When Ethan finished, she reached out and squeezed his hand. "Thank you, Dr. Ethan, for everything." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. He quickly cleared it and stood up. "I've also arranged for some extra help," he said. "A home health nurse will visit twice a week to check on you, and I've set up meal deliveries for the first month." Anna's eyes widened in surprise. "Dr. Ethan, that's too much. I can't afford it." Ethan held up his hand to stop her. "It's all taken care of, Anna. Your job now is to focus on getting better." Tears filled Anna's eyes. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Ethan replied softly. "Just get well." As a nurse came in with a wheelchair, Ethan helped Anna into it. He watched as she was wheeled out of the room, feeling both proud and humble. He knew Anna's recovery journey was just beginning, but he was determined to support her all the way. As Anna sat in the wheelchair, ready to leave the hospital, she turned to Ethan with a warm smile. Her eyes, once full of fear and uncertainty, now shone with gratitude and hope. "Dr. Ethan," she began, her voice soft but strong, "I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for me." Ethan felt a lump in his throat again. He hadn't expected to feel so emotional. "It's my job, Anna," he replied, trying to stay calm. Anna shook her head gently. "No, it's more than that. I've seen a change in you, Dr. Ethan. When I first came to your clinic, I felt invisible, but now I feel seen and cared for." Ethan blushed, remembering their first meeting. He wanted to apologize, but Anna continued. "I hope," she said, looking him in the eyes, "that you'll keep treating all your patients with the same care and respect you've shown me. Every person who comes to you deserves that." Her words hit Ethan deeply. He realized Anna wasn't just thanking him, she was challenging him to do better. "I will, Anna," Ethan promised, his voice full of emotion. "I give you my word." Anna reached out and squeezed his hand. "Then you'll be the great doctor I know you can be." As the nurse began to wheel Anna away, Ethan felt a strong change inside himself. Anna's words had made him even more determined to improve, not just for her, but for all his future patients. He knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was committed to living up to the trust Anna had placed in him. That evening, when Ethan arrived home, he was still thinking about everything that happened during the day. As he walked through the front door, he was greeted by the warm smiles of Sarah and Emily, who were eager to hear about Anna's discharge. "How did it go, Dad?" Emily asked, her eyes bright with anticipation. Ethan took a deep breath and joined his family in the living room. "It went well," he began, his voice filled with a mix of emotions. "Anna's recovery has been amazing. She's strong both in body and spirit." Sarah reached out and squeezed her husband's hand, sensing there was more to the story. "But it's not just about her physical recovery," Ethan continued, his voice growing softer. "Anna taught me something important today. She thanked me, but she also challenged me to be better." Emily leaned forward, her expression serious. "What do you mean, Dad?" Ethan looked at his daughter, feeling proud of her compassion. "She reminded me of the importance of treating every patient with respect and dignity, no matter who they are or where they come from." Emily's face lit up with a smile. "That's exactly what I've been trying to tell you, Dad. I'm so proud of you for listening and learning." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. "You're right, Emily, and I want you to know I'm grateful for your influence. You, your mother, and even Anna and Ella, you've all helped me see things differently." Sarah wrapped an arm around her husband's shoulders. "We're here to support you, Ethan. Change isn't easy, but it's worth it." Emily nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. And remember, Dad, kindness and compassion aren't just for special cases. They should be for everyone, always." Ethan looked at his daughter, marveling at her wisdom beyond her years. "You're absolutely right, Emily. I've learned so much from all of you. I promise to carry these lessons with me every day, with every patient I see." As the family continued their discussion, Ethan felt a profound sense of gratitude. He realized that his transformation wasn't just about becoming a better doctor, but about becoming a better person. He had the amazing women in his life to thank for guiding him on this journey. The following morning, Ethan woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. As he prepared for work, he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to do more. The lessons he had learned from Anna's case and his family's support had ignited a spark within him. During his morning rounds at the hospital, Ethan found himself looking at his patients differently. He saw beyond their illnesses, recognizing each person's unique story and struggles. This new perspective weighed heavily on his heart, especially when he encountered patients who were clearly struggling to afford their medical care. As he sat in his office later that day, Ethan made a decision that would change the course of his career. He picked up the phone and called for an emergency staff meeting. When his colleagues gathered in the conference room, they were surprised by the determination in Ethan's eyes. He stood at the head of the table, took a deep breath, and began to speak. "I've called you all here today because I have a proposal," Ethan said, his voice steady and clear. "I want to open a clinic in the underserved area of our city to provide free medical care to those who cannot afford it." A hushed murmur spread through the room. Dr. Thompson, one of the senior surgeons, raised an eyebrow. "Ethan, this is unexpected. What brought this on?" Ethan smiled softly. "Recent events have opened my eyes to the real struggles many people face when it comes to healthcare. We have the skills and resources to make a difference. I believe it's our duty to do so." As Ethan explained his vision for the clinic, he could see the surprise on his colleagues' faces slowly turn to interest. Dr. Chen, a young resident, was the first to speak up. "I think it's a wonderful idea, Dr. Ethan," she said enthusiastically. "I'd be honored to volunteer at the clinic." One by one, other doctors and nurses began to voice their support. Some offered to help with logistics, while others volunteered their medical expertise. Ethan felt a warmth spread through his chest as he realized his colleagues were not only surprised by his decision, but inspired by it. Dr. Thompson, who had initially seemed skeptical, stood up. "Ethan, I have to admit I never expected this from you, but I'm impressed by your initiative. Count me in." As word spread about Ethan's new initiative, he found himself inundated with messages from medical professionals across the city. Many were inspired by his vision of providing compassionate care to all, regardless of their background. Ethan realized that he needed to carefully select a team that shared his newfound values and commitment. One sunny afternoon, Ethan sat in his office, poring over applications and resumes. He wanted to ensure that each person he brought on board truly understood the importance of treating every patient with dignity and respect. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called out. Dr. Sophia Maria, a respected pediatrician, entered the room. "Dr. Ethan, I heard about your clinic project. I'd like to volunteer my services," she said, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. Ethan smiled warmly. "That's wonderful, Dr. Sanchez. Please have a seat. I'd love to hear more about why you're interested in joining us." As they talked, Ethan was impressed by Sophia's passion for helping underprivileged children. She shared stories of her own experiences growing up in a low-income neighborhood and how those memories fueled her desire to give back. "Your dedication is exactly what we need," Ethan said, extending his hand. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Sanchez." Over the next few weeks, Ethan continued to meet with potential team members. He sought out nurses, technicians, and administrative staff who demonstrated a genuine commitment to compassionate care. During one interview, Ethan met with Liam, a young nurse with a bright smile and kind eyes. "I've always believed that healthcare should be accessible to everyone," Liam said earnestly. "When I heard about your clinic, I knew I had to be a part of it." Ethan nodded approvingly. "That's the kind of attitude we need, Liam. Can you tell me about a time when you went above and beyond for a patient?" As Liam shared a touching story about comforting a scared child during a difficult procedure, Ethan felt a sense of pride. He was building a team that truly cared about making a difference in people's lives. The day of the clinic's grand opening arrived, and Ethan felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. As he stood before the newly renovated building, the fresh paint gleamed in the morning sunlight, and a colorful banner hung above the entrance, welcoming all who needed care. As the doors opened, Ethan was surprised to see a line of people already waiting. Families with young children, elderly couples helping each other, and people from all walks of life stood patiently with hope in their eyes. "Good morning, everyone," Ethan called out warmly. "Welcome to our clinic. We're here to help you." The first patient to enter was an elderly woman with a kind face full of wrinkles. She approached Ethan with a trembling hand. "Thank you, doctor," she said softly. "I've been putting off getting my heart checked for months because I couldn't afford it." Ethan gently patted her hand. "You're in the right place now, ma'am. We'll take good care of you." As the day went on, Ethan and his team worked hard to help each patient. They treated everything from common colds to more serious illnesses, always taking the time to listen and give kind care. During a short lunch break, Ethan stepped outside for some fresh air. He was amazed to see people still waiting patiently to be seen. Instead of feeling tired, he felt proud and determined. "We're making a real difference," he thought. "This is what healthcare should be about." When Ethan went back inside, he noticed Dr. Sanchez comforting a crying child while Liam organized patient files. The teamwork and dedication he saw filled him with gratitude. As the day drew to a close, Ethan felt tired but deeply satisfied. He had personally treated dozens of patients, each interaction making him more committed to providing fair health care. Just before closing, a familiar face appeared at the reception desk. It was Anna holding Ella's hand. Ethan's heart swelled with emotion as he approached them. "Dr. Ethan," Anna said with a warm smile, "we wanted to come and see the clinic for ourselves. What you're doing here is truly amazing." Ethan felt a lump in his throat as he replied, "Thank you, Anna. It means so much to hear that from you." As Anna and Ella stood before him, Ethan felt a wave of emotion wash over him. Anna's eyes sparkled with health and gratitude, a big difference from the pain-filled look he remembered from their first meeting. Ella, holding her mother's hand, looked up at Ethan with admiration. "Dr. Ethan," Anna began, her voice soft but strong, "we wanted to come and thank you properly, not just for the clinic, but for everything you've done for us." Ethan swallowed hard, feeling a lump form in his throat. "Anna, I don't know what to say. You don't need to thank me. If anything, I should be thanking you." Anna shook her head gently. "You saved my life, Dr. Ethan, and more than that, you've changed so many lives with this clinic. Look around you." She gestured to the busy waiting room. "These people have hope now because of you." Ethan looked around, seeing patients being cared for with dignity and respect. He saw smiles where there once might have been fear or sadness. The realization of the impact he was making hit him hard. Ella tugged on Ethan's coat, drawing his attention. "Dr. Ethan, you're a real hero," she said, her eyes shining with admiration. "You made my mommy better, and now you're helping all these people too." Ethan knelt down to Ella's level, his eyes misting over. "Ella, your mom is the real hero. She taught me one of the most important lessons of my life, that every person deserves compassion and care, no matter who they are or where they come from." Standing up, Ethan addressed both Anna and Ella. "Your visit means more to me than you could ever know. It reminds me why we're doing this, why it's so important." Anna reached out and squeezed Ethan's hand. "You've become the doctor and the person you were always meant to be, Dr. Ethan. Never forget that." As Ethan watched Anna and Ella leave the clinic, he felt a profound sense of gratitude and purpose. Their visit had reminded him of the importance of compassion in healthcare and in life. He turned back to the waiting room, ready to continue his work with renewed energy and dedication. Years had passed since that special day when Anna and Ella visited Ethan's clinic. Now, on a warm summer evening, the school auditorium buzzed with excitement as families gathered for Ella's graduation ceremony. Ethan sat in the audience, his heart swelling with pride as he watched the young woman Ella had become. As the principal entered the guest speaker, Ethan's breath caught in his throat. It was Anna, looking radiant and healthy, stepping up to the podium. Her eyes scanned the crowd, meeting Ethan's for a brief moment before she began her speech. "Good evening, everyone." Anna started, her voice clear and strong. "I stand before you today not just as Ella's mother, but as someone who has experienced firsthand the power of compassion and empathy in our world." Anna paused, taking a deep breath. "A few years ago, I faced a health crisis that nearly took my life. I was scared, alone, and feeling hopeless. But then something miraculous happened. A doctor who had once dismissed me had a change of heart." Ethan felt tears welling up in his eyes as Anna continued. "Dr. Ethan Brooks and his medical team didn't just save my life. They showed me the true meaning of empathy. They taught me that a simple act of kindness, a moment of understanding, can change everything." Anna's voice grew passionate as she addressed the graduating class. "To all of you young people starting your journey into the world, remember this. Empathy has the power to transform lives. It can break down barriers, heal wounds, and create a better world for all of us." As Anna spoke about the clinic Ethan had opened and the lives it had touched, Ethan felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He remembered the man he used to be and marveled at how far he had come. Dr. Ethan Brooks's journey of transformation is a powerful story of change and inspiration. It all started when Anna, a patient, spoke about how Ethan's empathy had not only saved her life, but also inspired a movement of compassion that touched countless lives. Anna's words were a testament to how it's never too late to become a better version of ourselves. Ethan was deeply moved by her speech. He realized how much his journey had changed him and how the compassion he had learned had impacted so many others. As Anna's speech came to an end, the entire auditorium erupted in applause. Ethan wiped away a tear, feeling his heart swell with emotion. He looked at Emily, his daughter, who was seated beside him, and saw that she too was deeply touched by Anna's words. After the ceremony, as families mingled and congratulated the graduates, Emily turned to her father with a determined look in her eyes. "Dad," she said, her voice filled with purpose, "I've made a decision." Ethan looked at his daughter curiously, eager to hear what she had to say. Emily took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. "I want to become a doctor just like you. I want to help people and make a difference in their lives." Ethan's eyes widened in surprise, and then a proud smile spread across his face. He placed his hands on Emily's shoulders and looked into her eyes. "Emily, that's wonderful," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you." Emily's eyes shone with excitement. "I've been thinking about it for a while now. Seeing how you've changed and how you've helped people like Anna and so many others at the clinic has inspired me. I want to do the same." Ethan pulled his daughter into a tight hug. As he held her, he felt a surge of love and pride. When they pulled apart, he looked at Emily with determination. "I promise you, Emily, I'll support you every step of the way," Ethan declared. "I'll make sure you have everything you need to become the kind of doctor who truly cares for her patients and serves with compassion and integrity." Emily beamed at her father's words. "Thanks, Dad. I want to be the kind of doctor who sees people for who they are, not just their symptoms or their background. I want to make a real difference, just like you have." Ethan felt his heart swell with pride. He realized that his journey of transformation had not only changed him, but had also inspired his daughter to follow a path of compassion and service. Years passed since that fateful graduation day. Now Dr. Ethan Brooks stood in the bustling clinic he had founded, watching with pride as his daughter, Dr. Sophie Brooks, tended to a patient. The small examination room was filled with warmth and compassion, a stark contrast to the cold, sterile environment Ethan had once created in his practice. As Emily finished up with her patient, an elderly woman with a kind smile, Ethan approached her. "How's Mrs. Thompson doing?" he asked, his voice gentle and caring. Emily beamed at her father. "She's doing much better. Her blood pressure is under control and she's following her treatment plan perfectly." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of fulfillment wash over him. He looked around the clinic, taking in the diverse faces of patients waiting to be seen. People from all walks of life sat side by side, each receiving the same level of care and respect. As they walked together to the next examination room, Ethan felt a wave of emotion. He paused and placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. "You know, Emily," he said softly, "I've learned so much since we started this clinic, but the most important lesson has been that true healing comes from the heart." Emily smiled at her father, understanding the depth of his words. "I know, Dad, you've taught me that every day." Ethan's eyes misted over as he looked at the clinic around them. This place had become more than just a medical facility. It was a symbol of his redemption, a testament to his commitment to serving humanity without barriers. As they entered the next room to see their patient, Ethan felt a profound sense of gratitude. He had come so far from the prejudiced doctor he once was, and now, working alongside his daughter, he was living proof that change was possible. The clinic stood as a beacon of hope, not just for the patients it served, but for anyone who believed in the power of compassion and the possibility of personal growth. Ethan looked at Emily, knowing that their work together was making a real difference in the world. It was a reminder that with empathy and dedication, people could transform their lives and inspire others to do the same.